So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Desi Vibes 360, the future king of comedy, Ali Ahmed. Welcome, Ali.
When my parents do go socialize these days, it is a little bit of a, thing for them because they have to answer the question of like, how's Ali doing? What's Ali doing? Right? It's been a tough question for them to answer. Like, I've been all over the board this year, and it's been a creative year. Like, I did a stand-up. I've been doing stand-up, obviously. Did an acting class. Started doing some freelance work. I'm kind of all over the board. Creative year, but these guys have had to get creative too on how to answer that question. Because they get asked how Ali's doing. They're workshopping these bits the same way I'm workshopping it at the open mic. They're like, he's an entrepreneur. He's a comedian. He's doing acting. He's doing marketing. Whatever. They've learned that nothing quite rolls off the tongue like he's in medical school. That's what they wish they could say. They're not able to say that. My dad just started answering that question of what's Ali doing to, I don't know, can we just talk about Zara?
Hey, wow. Thanks. What an intro. That was very well said. I appreciate that. It's great to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on. This is my first podcast I've ever done, actually. So you guys are putting me on the map. I appreciate it. I'm born and raised in Michigan, and I'm 26. I graduated from college 2020 in COVID. I went to University of Michigan, and then the past few years since COVID have been very interesting. A lot has changed for me. Anshul alluded to it, but my path has definitely changed a bit. I find myself now in New York, going back and forth between Michigan and New York a good amount, and doing stand-up among some other things, but stand-up has definitely been at the forefront of what I've been doing over the past few years, and learned a lot from it, and excited to talk more about all that.
Awesome. Cool. So welcome to our Desi 360 podcast. And, just a quick, by the extension of introduction. So you did join a conventional job out of college. And then, you took up stand-up after, some experience in the field. So what hopped, right? And what made you decide that this was the future that you wanted to embark on?
It's a conversation I've had to divulge many times. I got a lot of practice explaining it to my parents, what happened and everything. But when I graduated from school, I was doing a consulting job. That there was a delay in starting. It was 6 months after graduation that my job actually started. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And I think I started to just catch up to myself a bit, where I was starting to recognize some things about what I was interested in and what I told myself I wanted to do versus what I actually wanted to do. I did this job after college for a couple of years as a management consulting job, but I didn't quit for stand-up. I just quit because I had a feeling in me that I wasn't getting any further or closer towards what I wanted to do as I spent my time doing something I knew I didn't want to do. So I just needed to wipe the slate clean and step away, and that's what I told my parents too, and they did not like it at all, as you can imagine. This is true. I didn't tell them. I wrote a speech for them, put in my 3 weeks notice at the job. I didn't tell anyone, not even my girlfriend at the time, not even my parents. I was away in San Francisco. I just felt this feeling of, oh my God, I think this is kind of happening. I need to do this. And then I came home. I remember it was October 31st, Halloween 2022. And I told my parents I'm taking them to lunch. And I pulled out the speech and I started reading it to them. And then I said, and so in order to chase my dreams, I need to quit my job. And I did it. I finally did it, and my life will start soon. And my dad, his smile went from, can you reverse it? Can you reverse that? This is final? We're going home right now. Let's go. It was a pretty funny time to tell them that. But yeah, that's how that happened. It was kind of weird.
I was working with my mom. I showed her how to use ChatGPT to organize files at her work, be a little bit more efficient. And I overheard her telling someone that I'm an AI engineer.
Because I'll ask you this straight out, Ali, and I'll ask you this pretty blunt, right?
Yeah.
We Desi parents, we are pretty linear in our thinking, right? Everything has to be, ROI, returns and things like that. So basically, growing up and as a father of young children myself, I say,
Right.
hello, you have to study very hard. You have to get into
Yeah.
Stanford, Harvard, MIT, become a lawyer. That's how we think, as typical Desi parents, right? So anything outside of this paradigm, right, is unacceptable and it makes sense, right? Because we come from background where we look for certainty, we look for predictability. We don't want to veer of the trodden. So I can imagine how as Desi parents, your parents must have, because I can see those parents who come to your stand-up acts, right, who see your show, doctors, lawyers, Wall Street types. When they're driving back, they must be saying, "Oh, that Ali, but son, don't follow the same path." You
Right.
joke about that.
100%.
Yeah. So I mean, that is the Desi, norm. That is the Desi thinking. So did it take time, or are you still, trying to break out of that mode?
I mean, I think like the big thing is I'm going to sound, especially in this domain of conversation, I'm going to sound very cheesy because I've realized there's no way. A lot of the things that we say, a lot of the tropes of follow your heart, listen to yourself, this and that, they're very cheesy, but they're true. I think they're very true. So what I'm saying is like when I told my parents what I was doing, I think they noticed that I was serious about just figuring something out. And I wasn't sitting on my ass all day, just like, doing nothing. I was like thinking, trying to do things. It wasn't pretty, but I was operating and moving. So I think from that, they realized like, we don't have a choice, but at the very least, he's doing something about it. So I think it's like, they just noticed the courage and the passion maybe that I had at that time. Over the past few years, it's definitely continued to be messy, but I think like my parents have had to grow up a lot with me. I've chosen to be at home for a lot of this past few years too. I've been in New York, but I come home a lot because for me, it's important to kind of like hold their hands too as I kind of walk forward. I don't want to be one of those people who is like, screw my parents, they'll see one day, I'm out of here, I'll figure it out, because I do want them to be with me. So over this time talking with them and everything, like we've had a lot of serious conversations, but I've seen them kind of like grow up and mature too in a certain sense, because like you mentioned, like, I owe them everything in my life, but they've got this linear mold of like how things are supposed to be. And it comes from uncertainty. I think like that was the thing for me that started to like click, was that it's not that they don't believe in me or this or that and the other. It's just that when you say he's a doctor, that's 8 years of his life that what it looks like, what happens, the ROI. Everything is so written out and it's awesome. Like that's amazing. But I think there's a level of certainty that provides that I was completely doing the opposite of. But that was the only thing, because the possibilities are very high too of what could happen. It's just that we don't see the path for that, and so there's a lot of like day-to-day kind of just like what's going on.
I'm sure both of your parents must have sleepless nights after you read out that speech in that restaurant, and then you came back. But I think I'm sure you must have heard this from your dad, right? So, or mom, like, hey, we sent you to University of Michigan. We spent so much of money.
Right.
What the heck were you doing? And then you are joining management consulting. You work there for a few days or months or weeks, whatever it is, and then you come back and read this letter to us and give us a speech. So you did mention just now that you did not know what to do, but that was, you were trying to find your niche area or your passion. How long was that period? Like how long have you been thinking, number one, and number two, what was that spark? Did you see any of the comedians or stand-up comedian, or you have been following them in the past and you said, hey, this is the one, let me get into this?
No, for sure. And like, I think one of my theories that has just like, I'm trying to stay true to in my life, I just noticed is that like when you have no tension, what you choose to do in that time is very indicative of just like what you should be doing in your life, but it's hard to find those pockets of no tension. So there's a couple things that happened. Like the first time I did stand up ever was at University of Michigan. I was a senior. I was on this big kick in my second semester of year. I shaved my head bald because my family went to do the Hajj. I was like, I did not want to, but I did. And I came back to school and I was like really like frustrated initially, but then I was like, it's not a big deal. Like the hair grows back. I was so attached to just like, I'm looking like an idiot. And then after that, I was kind of like on a kick of like, I want to do like some more stuff that scares me. So I put my name down for an open mic because one of my buddies told me I should do it. This open mic, it's in Ann Arbor. It's called the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase. Every Wednesday, they do this open mic. It's a very, very cool show. Extremely difficult show for a first timer because the lights are bright on you. It's a legit show. You feel very like, oh my God, like this is not like some bar open mic where no one's listening. Everyone's there watching you. So it's high intensity. That was the first mic I did. It went awful. It was terrible. But the one thing I remember was when I was writing for it, I did feel the spark of just like, wow, like this is so fun to think about, just like things that I am going to come and tell people to get them to laugh. So I enjoyed that part. It did not go well, but something did occur to me that like there was truth in that part of it, me liking it compared to it not going well. Like that wasn't the truth. The truth was that as I was writing it, or putting it together, whatever nonsense I put that together that time.
And I've been getting fed up with it, right? You know, and so not to get all hustle menage, but I told my mom, I was like, Mama, Mama, I'm trying to follow my heart. I'm trying to listen to what's in my soul. I want to let it take me somewhere. You know, I want to get rid of all the fear in my life so that one day it'll start to become obvious what I've been meant to do this whole life, you know? And my mom's like, can you shorten that a bit? Can you shorten that? It's good. Just can you shorten that a little bit? I don't know how to say that.
That was the spark, basically, where you realize, hey, I have something in me which I can develop and try to impress people or show the humor out of that.
Yes. And I think like, you know, the spark is not something that is specific to a single task or single thing you do. Like I found that the spark is something I think you just are in touch with, and the goal in life is to always feel that whatever you're doing. But I think as you're growing up, there are pockets of time or certain experiences that like you feel that kind of like higher sense of like, wow, this is very awesome. Something bigger than me is kind of being like spoken to right now. And then like the goal as you grow up is to kind of piece it together and be like, what are all those sparks? What do they have in common? How do I kind of like bring them together more? And that's the journey I'm on right now.
Great. Ali, how about you do a quick performance of like 10, 15 or 20 or 30 seconds and show us your talent or show our audience your talent?
Man, well, I feel like being put on the spot can be difficult for me, but something did jump out to me when I got on this call. You know, like my parents wish I was still at the corporate job and stuff, but I'm on a Zoom call with two Indian guys asking me about my life, what I've been doing. Feels like I'm back on that job. You know, nothing's changed.
But coming back to your life story, Ali, you said about your creative spark, about your creative process.
Yeah.
Does that still give you trying out these jokes, right? Is that still the highlight? Is that still the tipping point for you and then bringing you back to the well, right? Performing. Is that the highlight of the entire process?
Yeah, I'd say, well, I mean, the best feeling is definitely like when you come up with something that you try and it gets people to laugh. And not only that, but there's an added layer, I think, after doing this I'm only 2.5 years into this really, which is not a lot of time, but you know, I've definitely been thoughtful about it past few years. Now, what really makes things pop is when I can say something that's funny, but also feels true to myself, you know, because there are jokes that, you know, I could write and people can write that feel like anybody can come and say them. But the ones that I feel that actually keep me going are the ones that like that make me feel like, yeah, like that also describes what I like. There's truth in this. That's me. This feels like I can say this forever. You know, like I'm jealous of musicians because musicians get to write a song and then they can perform that song all the time. And it's like a beautiful song that's just like amazing, right? But I've been starting to challenge myself also, like, how do you write jokes that can feel like that too, that feel like when you go and tell them, you'll always feel like I want to tell these jokes because they just capture who I am at this time of my life, and they're very real. So when I can find something like that, it definitely makes me feel that spark. Like I have a joke that if anybody comes to see me live, they'll definitely hear this if I have a longer set. But it's a joke where I play on the word inshallah that my mom uses, and how it's yes or no. It doesn't mean anything. She'll use it when it's to her advantage to get out of something. And it's like a lot of people do that. But that joke not only is funny, but it feels like I say it, I never get tired of saying it because it always comes up in my life. And it's like a very real part of how I grew up and everything. So that's one of the few jokes I have, though, that I feel that way about.
Okay.
That guy's fedora's flying off. He's like, what do you mean you want to do stand-up, huh? I'll make a joke out of you. Comedy, what's the ROI in that, huh? Go do your SAT.
How do you craft these jokes? Like, what is the process? Let's say you are going for a stand-up comedy show somewhere, right? At someone's house, or even in a private show, or you're doing it in New York. What is the process and how do you prepare for it? I think it will be helpful to understand, at least at a high level.
You know, I'm still figuring it out, man. I don't know. Like, I'll tell you this, though. Like, you know, the past week, Thanksgiving was last week. I got to get up at the party that we had and tell these jokes to everybody. A lot of them I knew. You guys were there, which was awesome. And being able to prepare for that, definitely, like, it was a very cool opportunity because, you know, this was my third time doing this. So this time coming into this Thanksgiving party, I was like, okay, I know what people's vibes are. I know what the environment will be like. And I know the people. I know the audience well. So I felt like I was able to build out a process this time. It played out for me. I didn't actually come into it with a process. It played out for me. So this is what happened was, like, I knew that I had this opportunity coming up, and I didn't want to do any of the jokes I do when I do stand-up. I wanted to do mostly stuff about the people, mostly stuff about what was going on. So I was thinking, like, okay, I started making a notes app where I would just put one-liners of anything I thought was funny. They wouldn't even be completed thoughts. They'd be like Thorin has a podcast, ha 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 ha, right? The stuff that's just like nonsense, but it's like I put them all together. And then the night before the show, I came home and I locked in for like a few hours. I did this very last minute, but that's the thing with making stuff like this is you can't treat it like a job where it's like day one, day two, day three. Here's the roadmap of how when something strikes you, it strikes you, and you just got to do it, right?
Yeah.
So the night before, I had this long list of all these nuggets of just like things that I thought were funny. And then I put a document together where I started writing each joke out without thinking about where it was going to be, when I was going to say it, how I was going to say it. I just got rid of all of that. And then I tried to just write these jokes out so that I could find a way to like make them have some sort of rhythm and have some ending and make sure it's funny. And so then I put all those nuggets together. I had the page of 15 pages long of just all these nuggets that were now built out. And then I trimmed down the ones that I thought I don't think I can do anything with. I had a little bit left, and then I started to sequence them together. So I was like, this would make sense to say after this. And if I say this, then I can go into this. And so I had all these paragraphs now that I was able to weave together to create something that felt like a sequence. Because, you know, that when you do stand-up, and I think stand-up has taught me about more than it teaches you about everything, right? But it's there's a pattern to it. Like when you get up in front of people, the first things you say have to be of something so that you can ease into the next few things. And I tried to incorporate that in. Another thing too on this is that a stand-up comedian who's a booker at a big club in New York told me, you know, it's a very simple thing. There's not a secret, but when you have a 5-minute set, the way you think about doing a 5-minute set, it's the same way you watch TikToks. TikToks also kind of, the really good reels and TikToks have this same sort of a pattern, which is the first thing should be really awesome and engaging. It's enough to get you to be like, okay. And then the middle, you build, you get more stuff done, you have some fun, and then at the end, you end on a bang. You tie it all together, you find a way to kind of like leave in a sense where it's like, okay, awesome. Where the crowd feels like, okay, that makes sense that he would end on that point.
Like that.
And so
like
like
that.
yeah, that sequence is
Yeah.
important to also think about.
Who's your favorite stand-up comedian, or whom you do get with?
Let's see. I feel like there's a lot of, I mean, this is the beauty of stand-up, and this is what I love about it, is like the people who do it well, it's very hard to compare them because everybody's like an instrument, right? You both are instruments. We're all instruments. Stand-up comedians are just people, I think, who have, and actors too. Anyone who's in the performing arts, they've just spent time trying to figure out what their instrument is and how to master their instrument so that it's a complete thing. When you see them, you feel like this person, there's something about it when they talk and they do this that feels very complete. So every comedian I watch who I consider to be like people I really like, I always feel like there's something about them that I want to emulate because they do just this thing so well because they've learned their instrument really well. I'm still figuring that out for myself, but I'll tell you a few people that like, for me, I feel like are my favorites. So there's this guy, New York comedian. He's been doing it for 17 plus years, I think. His name's Sam Morril. He's very popular online. What I love about him is that he does very structured jokes. His joke pattern and rhythm, everything he's saying, you know that there's some intelligence in every word because he's getting to some punchline. It's very sequential and mathematical almost, the way he does it. I love that. Another guy who I really like is, his name's Stavros Halkias. He's a big fat Greek guy who's got a mullet, and just like the charisma and confidence he exudes, it is like unbelievable. Like there are people who I think, you know, like who have everything going for them physically, whatever, who would never be able to channel the level of confidence and charisma that this guy puts forward. And it just goes to show, it's like, it's the words, the energy you have, that's like the only thing that actually matters when you know, getting up in front of people and stuff. So those are two guys. I could go on. I mean, there's so many, but one thing I want to say for your listeners, you guys might find this fun. Like, I mean, I grew up, you know, in our house, we speak like Urdu, whatever. Like I go to India, I don't know, Hindi, Urdu, it just feels like it's very similar. There are some comedians from India, like Abhishek Upmanyu is amazing, very mainstream guy. There's something about Hindi that it feels like a language designed for stand-up. I mean, it's designed to insult people for sure, but it's got the rhythm that's just like, I watch Indian comedians and I'm like, this is amazing.
Sometimes you gotta leave New York. New York is a very crazy place. It's a very egotistical place, right? A lot of people there with a lot of egos. I found that even the homeless people kind of have some ego to them there. Because they're New York homeless people, you know? They're kind of better than everybody. Or they're better than the other homeless people, at least. And like, I went to grab a slice of pizza once, and there was a homeless guy sitting out front. And I was going in, and the guy was like, hey, can I get a slice of pizza? And I was like, okay, fine, let's go. So we go into the pizza place. The guy asked me what I want. I go, 1 cheese. I look to the homeless guy. The homeless guy's like, I'll do 2 pepperonis, some garlic knots, and a Diet Coke. And I was like, you're getting what I'm getting. You're getting 1 slice of cheese. And this guy looked at me like, and then something in me happened, like my mom. I was like, who is this Nashukra? But now I'm home, right? And now that I'm home, it's like, I left a city of a bunch of egotistical people, and I'm just with 2 now. So it's it's definitely a trade-off, but the food situation is not great at my house. I will say that. Sorry, Mama, but my mom's funny too. She's got this good bit where she pretends like she cooked us food. Meanwhile, it's just food from a thali from our mosque. And she's serving us this food. And the thing is, it's like, it's blessed food, right? But the blessings are in place of the flavors. So it's not good. And I got really mad. At one time I was like, you know what? I'm not eating this. I bet there are homeless people who wouldn't even want this food. And my mom's like, yeah, that's you.
The way they just can like that.
But even you, Ali, now, right, a lot of us have seen you in private settings, at private parties, at even, clubs. And you are an amazing talent, right? It's a matter of time, I'm sure, right? Regardless of whatever insecurities you may feel yourself, but I'm sure we'll see a Netflix or Amazon Prime special, because I say that with all sincerity, right? Because we know you since the time you've been knee high, right? And if I have not felt this, I would have told very sincerely, Ali, son, go look for a day job as well. But at what you do,
Thank you.
the way you manage the crowds, the way your jokes are structured. But did you have stage fright, growing up? How did you manage, performing in front of a live audience? How did you garner this confidence?
That's really sweet of you to say. First of all, I appreciated the confidence I get. Definitely performing for you guys is it's special because it's something unique about being able to perform for people that that you love. Because when I get up in front of strangers, I feel very shy, especially, and I still feel that. Like I'm like I don't know anything about them. They may be thinking it's like you project your fear onto these people who are just crowd goers, who are just regular people who are there to have a good time. But I feel like I've gotten confidence to keep sticking with this when I perform for people I love, like you guys, because it's like I get to come in and take that fear that I have of people judging me or strangers and stuff, put that aside and just be me more. And so right now I'm working on how do I be me everywhere I go. Treat everybody like there's somebody that, not loves me, but could love me, just like a nice person, not thinking of anybody as a stranger who's, they probably won't like me for this or that, getting rid of those insecurities and whatnot. So to answer your question, like I still feel very much like I get nervous and stuff, but the biggest arc of where I'm at in my life right now, everybody finds this at a different point in their life, I think, but I'm at this point where I'm becoming brutally aware of like what prevents me from being me everywhere I go. Like I think you grow up, especially when you come from the corporate world and you grow up, in a house where maybe you were saying you were going to do this stuff so that you could just be the acha bacha. I think you forget how to be yourself somewhere along the road. And it's not gone fully, right? Like you always have it. But I think like pushing yourself to do stand-up or doing things like what you guys are doing, like doing a podcast that goes out to people, it pushes you to like have to come face to face with like, am I being myself? Or am I being like what I think I should be right now? And so my nervousness has gone up actually in the past few months because I've been pushing myself to try to come on stage and open up more and try to do a bit more of things that I normally wouldn't plan to say. But those are the moments where it just feels like, but that will go down, I think. It's kind of like exposure therapy.
Ali, I remember almost about a year back, I saw one of your comedy shows in Detroit downtown.
That's right.
Right? Your dad was there, I was there, and
yes,
and that was the first time I was taking a look at you. You were amazing. It was, I think, for like 4 or 5 minutes only, or maybe a little more. But you were amazing. And coming from a theater background, what really impressed me, definitely the content was great. You did not know the people out there. You were making fun of your dad over there.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, and one of the guys who was there, who was also a stand-up comedian, he was working in the same company where your dad is working. Yeah, but the good part was that, again, like you had an eye-to-eye contact. That was amazing with different people. So I didn't feel an inch of shyness in you. Honestly speaking, you were amazing. So and I'm not just making it up. I really believe that.
No. So first of all, you came to a good show of mine. They don't always go that way, but that was a great night. And I'm really happy you brought that up. That night, it's one of my like on my path that I've been on. That's one of the nights where I was like, there was some truth that night that came out, and I wanted to bottle it up and take it with me, but I had to kind of like realize that was an insight into something. So that night, I if you don't mind, I'd love to like open up about like what kind of what was happening. So this is at the Detroit House of Comedy, right?
Right.
They do an open mic every Tuesday. I had been going to that open mic once a month since I basically started like a year and a half ago in Detroit. And the guy there, he's awesome. He's watched me develop, when you get there, when you do this open mic, they tell you how much time you are going to have when you get there. So their lineup is pretty mixed up. Sometimes it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. The max you can get is 10 minutes. That night was the first time that the guy gave me 10 minutes.
Wow.
That was my first time ever doing 10 minutes. I was moving to New York in 2 weeks. My dad, he had come home from work and I was like, hey, do you want to come to this show tonight? And then he's like, no. And I was like, hey, Anshul's coming. And he's like, okay, if others are going, I'm in. So then this guy comes and we drive together. You guys got there early, so you were front row.
Right.
And Sham was there too, one of your friends, guy who's left, but I love Sham. He was there too. And so you guys are sitting front row. And I remember my opening joke that I wrote was, I came out and I said, guys, because it's a big crowd, I was like, guys, this is going to be interesting. My dad's here tonight sitting front row. He came to the show and he's like, all right, go on, show me why you didn't become a doctor. That's a simple riff, but something about saying that up top and getting the laugh immediately and having my dad there, it allowed me to open up and feel very comfortable as I went through the rest of my set. And I even went off script a couple times during that set. And I remember walking off stage for that. Like, I remember there was a point. I don't allow myself to get to this point in stand-up. I don't allow myself to get to the point where I don't know what I'm going to say next, because that's a very scary feeling. You feel like naked in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to say next. But I got to that point on accident because I went off script, because my dad was there, you guys were there. I could feel the support and the energy there. And I finished the set and I walked off and I felt this immense sense of fear, of just oh my God, I felt exposed. I was just I felt very uncomfortable. But then I came around and a lot of my comedian friends who were there, they were giving me kudos. They were saying that was very good. That was amazing. And I was I did not feel that at all. And it was a very interesting thing, because it was an insight though into what it could be like if I was free in front of people.
Right.
If I was free in front of people, maybe it would be really fun and awesome. And I got that taste that night for just a bit. And that show, I don't think it's gone that well since. It's been over a year.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone that well that it did that night. But that night, the memory of that keeps me going, because I'm there's some truth in that night.
No, but it's cool. My parents have been getting more into stand-up, which is awesome. We went to go see Zara G. Awesome comedian. She's such a good comedian. It just goes to show there's at least one funny Garg out there. Zara Gard's on this tour called Practical People Win. Okay, her tour is called Practical People Win. Zara Gard, for if you don't know, she's an Indian auntie who just is an amazing comedian, but she just reps that Indian auntie persona on stage. It's great. Her thing is called Practical People Win. My dad didn't want to go see her. My dad is I don't want to go. I'm gonna get bored to death. And I was like, it's not like Yash's Diwali trip. Listen, we get there, right? We get to the show, and I couldn't sit with my parents. They actually had to sit in front of me, to the row in front of me on the side. So I got to watch two shows. I got to watch Zara Gard, and then I got to watch my parents react to Zara Gard. And my mom's new to stand-up still. She's still learning how to be at these shows. There was a moment where Zara Gard was like, does anybody here know what jugaad is? And my mom from 50 rows back, she's like, me! Me! She's making a scene 50 rows back. And then later in the set, Zarna has this thing where she's today's kids think they can be anything and do anything. Since when? What happened to just working hard and becoming a doctor? And I watched my mom and dad get up out of their seats, and they were yeah! They were hugging each other. Yeah! My way home, my dad's best comedian. By far.
Right.
But that leads me to an interesting point, Ali. You are still
Yeah.
very, very young. in your career in the stand-up routine, right?
Yeah.
And you are an Indian Muslim young guy, making your way in the stand-up routine. So what is your niche, right? What do you think, right? Because right now there are a lot of stand-ups who are doing the Indian routine, who are doing the Muslim routine, who are doing the parents routine. So have you figured out your strain of comedy that you would like to do? What do you think would work for you? Because you have the Zara girls of the world, and they are the super successful ones. So what do you think is going to be your comedy strain?
I think, like, to answer your question, I don't know, but I'll say this, like, I have been doing the more common stuff for the past year and a half, 2 years. Like, I've been doing the, growing up with parents who are not from this country, growing up Muslim in like Rochester, Michigan, like that. There's like a lot of stuff that I've done there that feels authentic, but definitely can't be my niche because it's I don't think there's anything too unique about those takes. I've come to terms with the idea that like it will unfold as I keep going, and the way that I'll expedite it is if I keep taking risks with what I talk about on stage, and the risks are hard to take in stand-up sometimes because, well, like you have to get over this. I have to get over this. I'm telling myself this, but it's like you have to get over bombing. You have to get over just getting up on stage. Like I did a show Wednesday night, tried 2 new jokes out, silence.
Crickets.
Oh my God, like I could hear a pin drop. And I was just like, oh, this is awful. This is the worst freaking feeling of all time. So like, you have to take risks though. And the cost of the risks is exactly the silence and other comedians being, I thought this guy was good. What's going on with him? So you have to try some stuff out. I think like I'm young still, there's guys who do this who are younger than me, who have their niche. I'm like, good for you. It's amazing. My goal with stand-up is not necessarily to be rich off of it. I want to be able to tell a story and have fun with it and just do it right. So like I think I'm playing a longer game with this, and like I anticipate that one of the niche areas that I could tap into down the road, I don't know for sure. I don't know how to find the funny in it, but like I think there's something to be said about like undoing who you used to be or who you grew up being, undoing it so that you can be more of yourself. To me, it's a very like near and dear topic that is tied into psychology and the study of trauma and therapy and the way it relates to allowing someone to let go and kind of just be okay with things. I'm in this process right now, so it's harder to talk about in a jokey format, but I hope that maybe that can make its way into what I do.
Very profound. That's very profound, Ali. It's some of the stuff that a guy from India called Sadhguru does, right? So you're now delving into that.
Yeah. I don't want to be honestly, the idea of being a funnier Sadhguru is kind of interesting, but I just don't think it's possible.
But I have an idea for you, Ali.
Sure.
I think one of the tricks to make your parents happy, not that they are unhappy at this point of time. They love you and they love your comedy. But
what do you know? What do you know? What do you know? What are you not telling me?
But if you can impress a few girls and get married, I'll tell you, your mom will be so happy.
Talking about marriage, aren't you going to India pretty soon, in a couple of weeks' time?
That's right, I am. But it's no business on this trip. We're just having fun.
Are you going to try stand-up in India? You should go check out the clubs over there and just go for open night, Ali. That would be awesome.
I do. I dig Ankita's wavelength. I've been trying to channel that energy in conversations with my dad, because we've been having to talk a lot, figure things out. I've been trying to connect with him more in general, and I came really close this year, right when India capped off their brilliant T20 World Cup win.
Yeah.
When that was the closest, because most times I talk to my dad, it's like, hey, how are you? What's going on? How are you feeling? He's like, good, fine, nothing, thumbs up. But when India won, I got a text like, I'm so moved by the journey this team has been on. They triumphed and proved everyone wrong. Today I'm a proud Indian and filled with immense joy. And I was like, holy shit, that's awesome, Abu. One day I'm gonna make you as proud as this India team. And he was like, okay, what's the Amazon password again? It's close. It's close. It's goodbye last. It's fleeting, you know. But this is cool.
I'm gonna try that, and I'll try to get a video of it. Maybe this can be something of a throwback for your viewers. If I can get out to an open mic there, I'll try to do a couple minutes in Hindi, and you guys can. I'll send you the video.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys can use it. But I'm going to be in Hyderabad, and Hyderabad does have a stand-up scene.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to attend something.
Do it. Do it.
Do it. And India is a big, thriving stand-up scene right now. Not only that, but they're going to line up girls for you. People, they're going to come with trays of tea and pakora serve you that, and you'll have to select. You'll have to choose one of them. So it's coming.
If you keep talking about this, my parents will for sure listen to this episode.
They're planning this. Trust me.
Yeah.
Hey, we have one last thing before we wrap it up, Ali, is if any of the viewers and who are listening to this or looking at this video on YouTube, if they are interested in getting in touch with you for any private event, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, definitely. If you're interested, I'm also interested. I'd love to get up for any opportunity you have. I give you my email. You can shoot me an email. Any social media, you can hit me up on Instagram or via email. And I do like, personally, I found a lot of these private events to be like very fun because it's like, the audience, or you can get a sense of like what people are there for. However, they can go the opposite way too when people don't expect a comedian and then they show up and then it's like, what's this guy saying? Why is he saying all this vile stuff here? Like, so, but yeah, Instagram, hit me up. My email is aliahmed5786@gmail.com. And I don't have a manager yet, but so you can get in early. You can talk straight to me.
It's coming soon.
Yeah.
Great, Ali. Thank you so much for your time. This was so much of fun, and we'll stay connected, talk more. So
yeah. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you want. We can be connected there too if you want.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
thanks, Ali.
Appreciate
Thanks
you
for
guys
doing this with
having
us.
me. Seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Awesome.
Bye.